Welcome to the first episode in our 31 in 31 series, a month of conversations with Proverbs 31 women. Today's launch episode features Katie Ricketts, a woman who stepped out in bold faith 3 years ago to leave her teaching career and launch Kricketts T-Shirts Company with her mom. In the midst of this transition, Katie walked through the deep grief of losing her beloved father to a COVID-related illness. All the while, she and her husband were raising 3 active daughters, including a baby at the time who was under 1 year old. Katie's story is one of resilience, faith, and the courage to pursue a God-given dream, even when the road was uncertain. She now works alongside her mother and now her sister each day, turning creativity into ministry and business. I can't wait for you to hear how her faith has been her anchor through it all. It's an amazing, encouraging, and inspiring story. Join us on the inside for Katie's story. Katie, I'm so grateful that you agreed to participate in this series, 31 in 31. And I knew immediately when God laid this whole monumental task on me that you had to be a part of it. You were one of the very first names that He laid on my heart. And so I'm really excited for us to tell your story today. And can we get through it without crying?
Maybe.
Maybe. So I'm just going to jump right in with some talking points that we've kind of already, been over. But we're going to let this conversation just go where God wants it to go. Tell us just a little bit about who Katie Ricketts is and how where we are today came to be.
I'm Katie Davis Ricketts, originally from Kenton, and all I knew forever was softball. My husband and I met on the softball field. We'll be married. Well, we were married 12 and together 13 years. We have three girls, 11, 9, and 4. Our last daughter in 2021 was born, River James, and we didn't know we needed her at the time. And so that's kind of where it starts, but a little bit more backstory is, so we met on the ball field, played ball forever together, thought our kids would play ball. One didn't. She's going to sing the national anthem before the ball games, but our second child, Logan Kate,
by the way.
Yes, Logan Kate was on an all-star team. We advanced past the state level and was given an opportunity to go to the World Series, all within a 2-week period. So at this point, River was barely a year old, and in that 2 weeks, we had to come up with about $2,000 for a week in Branson as a family of 5.
Right.
Bubba George works at ERMCO, and so he was not going to be able to go except the very last few days of the week. And so I called my mom. I was like, Mom, well, what do we do? Like, a bake sale ain't going to cut it. And she has always embroidered and been a stay-at-home mom, but she hustled, selling Mary Kay, sewing, just all my life. That's what she did. So she had dabbled in T-shirts. And at that point, we just had a regular Epson printer that would print and specific colors, all that thing. And so she was like, we'll sell 4th of July T-shirts. So we did. And so we raked up, X number of dollars. And I was like, when River came along, I finished my last year of coaching at Dyersburg Middle with a very special group of girls. But that was my 11th year coaching. And God said, it's time to step aside and raise your own babies. So that was super hard because ball is all I knew.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I needed a hobby, and I didn't have one. And so T-shirts kind of became that hobby, and that getaway and that relax, because I didn't have to think too much because I could design it on my computer, run to my mom's, and she may or may not have it printed, or I could do it myself.
Right.
And be in and out. And so with us living in Dyersburg and her in Kenton, so it's a 25-minute drive. So that was kind of my me time with 3 kids and a husband and, trying to figure out who I was again.
Yeah, I was thinking about that on the way here because we're so for the audience. we're actually in Kricketts T-Shirt shop today, which is outside in the beautiful rural setting outside of Kenton, Tennessee. And so it was, a beautiful drive here. But my thought on the way here this morning, after about 20 minutes or so, was, gosh, Katie has a pretty good hike to get to the shop every day after dropping off 3 kids at school and then making this drive. So it's not real easy, but it's so beautiful. When I pulled onto the road, my very immediate thought was, I could never go home if I worked here every day. It's so beautiful.
Right. So when I taught school for those 11 years. The first 4.5 were at Kenton School. So we still lived in Dyersburg, and I made that trip, but it was never a bad trip.
Yeah.
And the special thing about here is this is family farm. On whatever side of the road, it's my grandparents, who started it, and my uncle now farms it, or it's a relative down the way. And so if you go around the corner and you get lost and you don't know where you are, somebody's always going to find you and tell you where to go, because we're all family, some way down the line. But yeah, so back to the T-shirts, we got that little bit of money for the World Series, and we ended up, no other teams got in the tournament. So God was like, you're not going. And I was like, okay. I just worked real hard on this. But then he was like, now, and we use that for an unexpected expense. I don't even know what it was at the time, but God was like, so watch this. I was like, oh, okay. Thank you.
Love it when God says, would you just sit down and be quiet and hold my sweet tea?
Exactly. And I'm not a good sitter, and I get in trouble a lot for that, because, Bubba will leave for work, and we needed a ceiling fan put up the other day, and I just did it. And then I got in trouble when he got home because I didn't wait on him. But everybody was fine, and the ceiling fan's working great. But I'm not a good sitter. And so I was like, maybe I could do this more. And so Mom and I started looking into, other T-shirt options, and we landed on DTF, and that's direct to film. And so we can do it all by ourselves, and we don't have to ask others to print and wait and all that. And so one order led to another, and a birthday shirt, and here and there. And I was like, oh. So after about 2 years, I was still teaching, and we were just coaching Logan's little league ball team, still getting my fill of both. God was like, you're going to do this full time. And at this point, River, who was born in 21, at that point, my mom and dad they were both diagnosed with COVID a month after River was born. And my daddy went to be with Jesus because we prayed for him to be healed and to be brought home. And he went to his heavenly home, and that's okay, because we knew he wouldn't be a good patient here. And so my mama did get to come home, and that's part of our story, because he knew we needed one of them if we couldn't have both. But at that point, he passed on August 28th. And then I had gone back to school August 23rd after having River.
Teaching.
Yeah. He passed that very next week. And then I got COVID the week after at the funeral. Wow. River and I both got COVID after the funeral. So at that point, I was terrified. I didn't want Bubba to touch me. I didn't want anybody to come in the room because I thought everybody was going to be gone. Mm-hmm. But while you're sitting there and you can't do anything but listen to your worship music and not so much question God, but just say, okay, God, what do we do now? He just kept saying, you're going to raise your babies for me, and your priorities are going to be your babies and your family. And I was like, well, what does that look like? Because I have to go to school every day. And at this point, I loved who I worked with. I love the kids, but I was crying every day going to school. And this is not normally me being a crier, but and my daddy would tell me to dry it up because he didn't like when his girls cried.
But you know what? Proverbs 31 women are real. They're just real, and they feel. And that's it's one of the very reasons I knew that you had to be part of this series.
Well, thank you. And so while I was sitting there and I was like, God, what am I going to do? I was crying every day going to school, and Bubba George, he's like, man, I really love you, but you're hard to get along with right now. And he will tell you he did not like me the last year of teaching. And my older two girls who were like 7 and 8 at that point, and they were like, Mommy, you're just a little grumpy. And so I was trying to figure out postpartum grief, a midlife crisis, if you want to call it, and what God wanted me to do with my life. And I thought teaching was who I was because that's all I knew, teaching and coaching. And that wasn't who my identity was.
Yeah.
But Christ said, you're going to do T-shirts full time. And I was like, well, that's going to take a lot because I have a teacher salary and Bubba's on at ERMCO and we're making it just okay right now. And we're not rolling in the dough. And I was like, well, what's that going to look like? And so we prayed for months and months, and I went on a trip with my sister to Mexico. She got it for a rewards for one of her side hustles, and her husband couldn't go, and so she's like, do you want to go? Well, we had never done that before, just my sister and I. And so we went, and sitting on that little beach in Mexico, God was like, do you trust me yet? Like, are you going to give it all? And I was like, I thought I already did. Like, what else do you want? What else could I give? Because my world was turned upside down. And I was like, yeah, I guess so. And I had to give him an answer at school of if I was going to return the next year or not. And so when I got back, the first question I was hit with was, have you made a decision about next year? And everybody around me already knew what I was supposed to say, but I didn't want to make the wrong choice because I felt so much pressure of having to, also provide for our family. And so I was like, yeah, I'm not coming back. I mean, it popped out before I could ever. I was like,
you can't suck that back in.
No. And I was like, I guess I'm not. So at that point, my mom and I really, we had already been discussing like what equipment we wanted and all this. And in the time, she had a small shop that she had always embroidered out of. We had actually lived in Covington, and we brought the shop here, and it had a rough life. And she needed a new one, but we both wouldn't fit in the shop. And so we built a 30 by 30 shop, and that's where we are today. And one of the cool things is, my mom got to come home, and we cherish every minute with her, and I get to work with her every day. But then God said, wait, there's more. And so in the summer, my kids get to be here, and so that's fun. And they design their own shirts, they press, they do all the things, and they get to be a part. But my sister, who had worked at the surgery center on full time, had recently given us some news about a year and a half ago, and her husband, they were expecting. Davis, my nephew, is 16, and he has a totally different story of God. And so now we have Davis, and we have sister. So her real name is Kaylee Jo, but we call her sister. And so my sister and sister get to come to work 2 to 3 days a week because she wanted to be a mom, and God made it happen. And so she gets to come, and it's the 3 of us in the shop every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, give or take our Wednesday. And if you'd have told me 10 years ago that we were all going to be working together, I would have probably told you no, because I didn't even like them that much. I mean, I really love my mama.
Sometimes you probably still don't.
And I really love my mom, but I was like, I want to work with them every day. But now when they're not here, it's like kind of, I don't know what to do. Like, I mean, I still work, but it's like, this is not even fun, like by yourself. And you don't know until God says, watch this. And then, you know, you get to just live your best dream that you didn't know was the best dream.
Obviously, that whole story is filled with faith, but just narrow down how your faith has shaped your outlook on taking this huge leap. Like you've done it, you've survived it, it's successful. God showed you, you trusted, and He showed you. So how has that affected your perspective on trusting God with the big things?
So Amanda Favre and I were actually talking the other day, business, just how our business are faith-based. And And so we, I think I found a meme, but it was so true. And it was, discipleship, or small business is the hardest but most rewarding discipleship there is.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, we're in the depths of it right now. Because I'll be honest, paychecks don't always roll in when people don't pay invoices, and you still have your bills. And God always provides. There's orders that pop up and you're like, oh, and you didn't know that person, but now they're your favorite customer because they just helped you pay that.
Right.
And so God, he just shows up and shows out at every moment. And I used to be I was a math teacher, so obviously all the numbers, I get very overwhelmed and I would get stressed, and you just have a peace about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, oh, that bill's a little day late, but it's okay. It'll get paid one day. And it always does.
They're not going to come take the lights out of the ceiling.
No, and that's the thing is God is like, just trust me.
Yeah.
And it's hard when you're if you're going to do it, that person of, if you're going to do it right the first time. And that's what my daddy had taught us. And so that's where we go. And if you're going to do it for somebody else, do it right. And so it's hard not to just go and do. Yeah. And God's saying, it's okay to say no.
Yeah.
It's okay when somebody else's emergency, it doesn't have to be yours.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, I need to do that one. And God says, no, it's okay.
Right.
Because he's going to provide.
Oh, yeah. That's exactly where I was with, no joke. And the audience will have heard this already in the introduction. But God literally laid this 31 in 31 series on me last week and said, I want you to tell 31 stories of women who are living out the Proverbs 31. And by the way, I want you to do it in October. And I was like,
yeah,
it's the middle of September. What are you thinking?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, you immediately go into panic because you want to do what God says that he needs you to do. But at the same time, the reality of the task upon you and the coordination and the herding of all the cats and the, prime example of this morning, just kicking off our setup was, oh no, I left the cell phone tripod at home. And all of the episodes of Authentically You up to this point have been studio produced, all the bells and whistles with lights and a producer and multiple cameras and blah, 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 blah. And he said, look, and that was my argument for 2 days was why we couldn't do this. It was because I couldn't afford 31 episodes of that. That Authentically You has no sponsors, has no advertisers. It has a husband who doesn't really realize he's the silent investor until he sees the bank account and some money's gone. So it was just like, no, I'm not your girl, God. I'm not your girl. And he said, yeah, you are, because you have a cell phone that you're on literally all the time. You've got some basics. You got a couple of little microphones. I don't need all the bells and whistles. God was telling me that he needed this platform to tell his story that's living out in 31 amazing women. And that trust is so hard.
And you have to get how am I going to do this out of the way? And how is he going to do this? Because, I'm not a good sitter. And if I can't do it, then I'm going to get mad and I don't want to do it. And so that's, all these events that we have coming up and, USJ, Holiday Mart, and we have Real Foot, all those are big events that, you have to take multiple runs of things. And sometimes we're close to selling out. And that's only because of the Lord. But I'm like, well, if I can't do it my way and have this set up and make it look like this. And then I'm like, never mind. It's okay.
And that's
it's
what
all
God
going to work
says to
out.
us sometimes that, I don't need you to do it your way. I need you to do it for me. And I'll take care of all the logistics and all the other
Very
stuff.
Much so.
But I need you to just get up and go.
Exactly. The go.
So it's just the trusting.
Send me.
It's just trusting. It's hard.
Very hard.
It's hard.
Very hard lesson to learn.
But that's so. During all this transition, we touched on the loss of your father, which is devastating. But how have you seen God's hand work in that adjustment?
So, like I said, my perspective changed on, why did I get up in the mornings? Because it was always, hurry, you got to get to school. I mean, we were always in a rush, and when you look back, it's like, yeah, time was fun, bye, but like, did we even enjoy it?
Yeah.
And so, not that River, I tell her all the time, River is not my favorite child. River just came. River thinks she is, but River came at a time.
We're going to edit that out for River.
River came at a time that we didn't know we needed her. And
River.
So
we all need River. River, I say it all the time. We have to say it now. River, for those of you that don't know Precious River, she is going to be either president of the United States one day or the leader of the prison yard gang.
Yes. And we're praying for president, but it depends on her day where she's at. But so with that, River kept me going when I didn't know what to do, because you still had to be a mom. Well, the other two kids, they were self-sufficient at the time. They could fix their own snack or, whatever, get themselves dressed. And River couldn't, she was a newborn. Yeah. And so her initials, River James, we just liked River, but James is after Bubba George and his dad. That's her first name, James Larry. And then we wanted her to be named after my dad, Ricky Joe. So her initials are RJ. So this was all decided before we ever knew he was going to be taken home to be with Jesus. And so River, she is just full of herself. But
if she were here, she'd be sitting right here.
She would.
And she would be looking at the camera.
And so, just God getting you through motherhood and postpartum and all of that, just you realize this is the whole point of life. Yeah. If you can't take your babies to heaven, then what are we doing?
Oh gosh, yeah.
And that was sitting there holding her, and I was like, oh my goodness. Mm-hmm. We even talked about homeschool. No, that was not a good, we did not, because, that whole little COVID time, Logan Kate wanted to quit school every day. And she would have to talk to the principal, which was her daddy, when he got home, and it never ended well. And so we just knew that was not a good fit for us. Blakely did her work and Logan's to try to get her out of trouble. And it was not going to be a good fit. But, it was to the point of we just wanted to keep them. Yeah, we just wanted to keep them whatever we could do. Yeah. And God said, no, here's what they're going to do. So I was at the Dyersburg Middle, and they were at the primary school, which we loved. But we also passed Fifth Consolidated, which is 3 minutes down from our house every day. And he said, they're going to go here because you're going to then go and work in the shop. And I was like, we'll see about that. But then, everything fell into place. And so you can trust the teachers there because they have the same faith.
Yeah.
Every teacher that we have had, we know where they go to church. We know their heart. We know who they are, and their families. And so it was like God was saying, yes, you're doing it, but you have to let other people in too. And that was the hard part because I'm very protective of my children. And so even a sleepover with so-and-so, I'm like, we'll pray about it. And they'll tell you first off, Mama's probably going to say no, but we'll see about it. That's what she's going to say. And so just living out, taking your babies to heaven. What does that look like? Starting them very young in scripture and reading and doing all the things with those bedtime stories and having their music on. And Blakely is always into music. So having specific songs, and selective songs because we started singing so young. And so just anything and everything to douse them in the Lord. That has been the whole perspective change of I can't raise everybody else's kids and I'm not supposed to. I'm supposed to love on them, I'm supposed to teach them as much as I can, whether on my ball team or Sunday school or wherever we are. But my focus is on my kids and my husband and what we can do to get them there.
And I've watched you do that, especially with Blakely. I have watched you myself. She takes voice lessons. In a secular setting, which is wonderful, and she does the concerts and the shows and all the things. But I have watched you be very protective of what she's asked to sing or what she's assigned.
Right.
And I've known of a time or two where you backed it up and said, you're not singing that song.
Not age appropriate or,
you're not singing that song.
Something that.
And what an example that's been, not only to Blakely, but to these other adults in her life. not just at her studio, but just around her, people that are observing the choices that she's making, to have a standard, and that standard is Christ. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's powerful.
And we've had times,
it's a powerful kind of silent testimony.
We've had times where she'll get in the car, because at the studio I don't go in. She goes in with her group, and she'll come out. She's like, Mom, she wanted me to sing this, but I told her that you're probably not going to be okay with that, so we were just going to need to pick another song. Which, at that point, the song I think would have been okay. But I don't know if she didn't want to sing it or she didn't feel comfortable. And that's why I told her, I said, if you don't feel comfortable, then that's the Lord talking to you as a Christian. And that's what we need to listen to. Yeah. Not just my voice, but also having her be aware of his voice. Yeah. And in those situations of possibly peer pressure, not intentionally, but it is people she loves and looks up to. And so, yeah, it's just... being a 10, now 11, we turned 11 on Monday, year-old, it's difficult to navigate those waters.
Oh my goodness. Speaking of navigating, so now with those 3 active daughters and one, we've talked about River. Yeah. One very different from the other 2. What does the balance look like now, and how does it feel?
My kids tell me that I'm a nice mom again. We'll drive by the school, and it's nothing against the school. We just drive by, and they're like, Mom, you were not nice.
Those are some dark days.
They do. They're like, Mom, you were not nice when you worked there. They're like, we loved you, but we didn't like you. And I'm like, oh, okay. Which they've heard their daddy jokingly say that, They're like, I loved you, but I didn't like you some days. And so that's been the fun part. But the balance is, for one, I have a peace about it, and I'm not... Yes, there is stress, but I'm not stressing it out loud or with my body language to my family and letting that toxicity roll over. And it wasn't anything that the school did or, anything like that. It was just God moving and me not knowing how to handle that and all the things going on all at one time.
Yeah. And that's something we don't talk about a lot, it's coming to the realization after uncomfortable, after you've been made to feel uncomfortable about something, that you realize just that you were made to feel uncomfortable for a reason. And it wasn't about the other people. It wasn't at all about them, when at the time you think it's all about them. And they're attacking me, they're making my life miserable, or this whole situation is just, I want out of it. And really it's just God maneuvering,
and he was really, preparing your heart, and you don't know what that looks like or how that is going to play out. Because at that point, I had been teaching 11 years. I was doing everything they asked. My evaluations were all great, but some things here and there, it was like, what in the world? And it was me making, what is it, a mountain out of a molehill, but to me, it was because so much other things were going on, and at work, that was kind of my safe, or supposed to be my safe space. But then God was like, "You're not going to be planted here," which I knew in my heart. I mean, I have my master's in educational leadership, but that's just a check on the bucket list because I don't use it obviously now. Yeah. But I just wanted it to say I have a master's, and so we did it. But like, it was one of those of God was like, "We're going to use all those skills later. We're going to use the Google and the da-da-da-da-da and all these teacher skills later," which we do use every day in our business. I know I was going to. And so it's just...
boy, are you using math as a small business owner. That's a daily...
Yes. And so it's all the little things with Canva, or we had to take a Google course during COVID, and I didn't ever pass that test. But all the Google tools, now I make forms for fundraisers, and it's all the little things you don't know you're gonna need. And God's like, if you'll just be patient, I will show you, which I'm not patient. We're learning how to be. Some days are better than others, but
the Proverbs 31 scripture say she was patient.
I know. I never read that.
I don't.
But I think she practices trying to be.
Practices.
Yeah. So we're still practicing. No. But all those things, they just fall into place, which helps the balance. But 2 active kids. Blakely does voice, and Logan Kate is whatever sport of the week. But we are into travel ball now, and so it's one of those of making sure that we're integrating Christ in that. And why are we playing? You know, why Blakely knows why she's singing, but why are we playing? We play for an audience of one.
But look at the full circle of that. Look at the whole full circle of that. Is that this whole thing started because of a travel ball tournament. I mean, the whole journey started because
even if you go back, that's where Bubba I met.
Yeah. I love the story about him seeing you play ball, and he told the guy, I'm going to marry that girl.
Oh, yeah. And so when he actually became a Christian, we were going to the Rock in Trenton. We love the Rock. But he was playing men's ball on the weekends, and that group of men loved on him enough. We started going there. And so he was saved at the Rock because of ball. So everything, I mean, we laugh all the time, you know, where would we be without ball? Yeah. But it's so true. And how God intertwines that, in our story, but how we're trying to get it to other people as well. I had a friend last night wanted her daughter to possibly try out in the spring. And she's like, well, I'm scared about these 2-day tournaments. And I said, no, ma'am, we're not. I said, I make the schedule. And so I did not want this travel ball team. Let me preface that. And then God, within 36 hours, said, no, you're going to, and blessed me with Haley Sipes to make this travel ball happen for these girls who needed it. And so we're able to love on them, but also they're, like I said, playing for an audience of one. And it's not about the strikeouts or the home runs or whatever. It's who are you taking to heaven with you? Because God's not going to ask about your championship rings or how many games you know, had a perfect hit or pitch or whatever your position was. And so it's us really trying to give that to the next generation for them to take home. Yeah. I love that. I love that so much. Thanks so much for sharing your story with us today. And it's such a perfect story of an example of a modern day Proverbs 31 woman who is living out dignity in decision making and trust. But what I love the most is that you are empowering young women to know Christ, and that is so important. It's so important because you may be making a decision for Blakely and Logan and River now that they are going to follow Christ because you're taking them to church, you're living that example, but they're going to get to an age where that choice is going to be theirs, right? But they have that foundation. They have that foundation already, and it's wonderful. Where, before we close, tell the audience, because I know they're all going to be dying for a T-shirt now, tell the audience where they can find Kricketts T-shirts. So it's K Ricketts, so for Kricketts, and that's one of our little ball kids. Her little brother named me Coach Kricketts, and so that kind of stuck when God said we were going to make this a real deal. So Kricketts T-shirt is on Facebook and Instagram, and it's also on, we have a website now, so it's Kricketts T-Shirts.com. And that's all linked on the Facebook page. But we also do custom. So we have a website for all the T-shirts that we've done over the few years, but we can also take custom orders for a one or groups or fundraisers and all the things. Thanks again for being so real and so raw and telling your Proverbs 31 story. It's a blessing to be here. Thanks for joining in today for this episode of the 31 in 31 series, a month of conversations with Proverbs 31 women here at the Authentically You Network podcast. We look forward to yet another great episode tomorrow and hope that you will join us to be inspired, encouraged, and have your faith strengthened. Have a great day and be blessed.